All right, and we're back for another episode of the Lakers Fast Break podcast. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from Lakers Fast Break. Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and Game Source. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our shows. And if you can, please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Plus, if you can like, share, subscribe, follow, or do anything that you can to support us right here at the Lakers Fast Break, it is immensely and truly appreciated. I'm just going to say this right now. I don't know if I will ever allow Jamie Sweet back on the program again. I'm officially banning him from the program. LakerTom was supposed to fight me off on this, but I don't think he's going to fight me on this. So we are probably going to have to. Okay, all right. I can't say that. He's a great guy. I can't ban him from the show as much as I'd like to. With the way he predicted that the Lakers would have a trap game, not only did they have not one trap game against the Oklahoma City Thunder, but they had 2 trap games against the Oklahoma City Thunder. And unfortunately today, same old story, got behind again by down as many as 20 points in the first half, had to come storming back once again in the second half, finally kicking the defense, did sneak a 2-point lead and actually up to 4 points at one time in the fourth quarter and managed to go ahead and say, you know what, we've got a 4-point lead. We've been struggling all day and all game with 3-point shots. Let's go and try and chuck a couple more instead of going straight to the basket when we were up. And even when we were down by 1 point, which was very frustrating to not go and try and get inside to make much better shots. Just keep on chucking it from the outside was the theme of the day. And the Lakers were fortunate to get it to overtime. But you know what? In the overtime, they finally did pull away from the Oklahoma City Thunder. Just barely, though, 114 to 113 in overtime. Again, that is not 1, not 2, but 3 straight games now for the Lakers in overtime. And here today to call this trap games that Admiral Ackbar, Jamie Sweet has predicted, because they've been trap games the past 3 games, is a good man indeed. You got to go ahead and check him out on Lakerholics.com and hismedium.com page and site as well. It is LakerTom. And LakerTom, I don't know, you may have to re-talk me about letting Jamie Sweet back on the program.
Well, you know, these glass half empty guys, they just keep predicting these squeaker games and
no, I don't do that. I don't do the trap game deal. That's him. So don't you include me that.
You know, I actually have to give credit to the Oklahoma City Thunder. 35-year-old kid, coach, $1.5 million first-round draft picks, and a young team that really plays pretty well disciplined ball. Their problem is they shoot a lot of threes and they can't make them.
Yeah,
they shot 20. I think they shot 22% from 3, and we shot 29%. But boy, you know, they've got some guys who've got some talent, and they stuck it to us in the first quarter, just like they did the other game. And then they hung on tight. I mean, I think our biggest lead was 4 points, wasn't it? I don't think we ever got
that is correct.
4 points.
And not in the fourth quarter, not in overtime.
You know, and the refs aren't going to call those close charge blocks late in the game. And Lou Dort's like LeBron going downhill when he turns a corner. And Al Horford still has a lot to go. They had a couple of guys who had career games basically, and the Lakers struggled. Couple of things that sort of jumped out at me were LeBron, you know, up until that last shot and then that beautiful 3, again, hitting from outside at clutch moments in the game. And Wes Matthews, if I were Frank Vogel, I'd be seriously considering starting Wes Matthews at this point in time over KCP. We're desperate for 3-point shooting. You can see it in the way that the reason we didn't go and attack the rim, the reason LeBron didn't attack the rim, the reason Dennis didn't attack the rim, the reason Trez didn't attack the rim when we got into that overtime is because they were sagging in and had 4 or 5 guys that were basically 1 foot in the paint. And they were daring us to shoot threes. Even LeBron, that three was a wide open three that he got. But we're desperate for 3-point shooting at this point in time. It's really been the Achilles heel for the team that has jumped up and really made it difficult. And to our credit, though, none of us, it was like a joke. We can't have 3 overtime games in a row. First time we've had that happen since 91-92. And in 91-92, we won the first 2 and lost the third one. Tonight, we won all 3 of them. So, I think that's great. My opinion is that Admiral Ackbar has used up all of his trap games of the year already. And so it's perfectly fine for you to put him back on the show. If he just get his daughter in bed in time so he could watch the game in normal time and be able to join us rather than, watching it the next morning. That would be great too, Jamie. But at any rate, listen, he's got a beautiful little daughter, and I can understand what comes first, and it's not a problem. But no more trap games, Jamie.
That's a problem to me when he calls all these trap games. That's a problem to me.
No more trap games, man. We've used them up for the year. We won all of our trap games, so now let's move forward.
Let's move forward because this is getting very.
Well, what's interesting is that
it's a good thing I have gray hair. It's a good thing I already have gray hair.
We're a half a game behind the. We're at 20-6, and the Jazz are at 20-5. I saw the Jazz play for the first time this year. I watched them play the Celtics. Played really well, man. I mean,
yes. They closed out that game.
They've got some guys that I've always loved and have always coveted for the Lakers. But they have a scheduling problem because their next 4 games are against the Bucks, the 76ers, and then a 2-game series against the Los Angeles Clippers. So that's going to be very interesting to see how they handle those 4 games. The Lakers have got another big game coming up on Valentine's Day with Denver. So that's a game that's going to be one to watch for us. But we've got a good chance to move into first place, and I think if we can do that and move into first place, and let's say Denver or Utah loses 2 of those 4 games, we can start to stretch out, and we're starting to see a little bit of spacing, between the teams. After the 5 and 6 Lakers, the next best team is 8, which is there's like 2 teams with 8 and then a 9 and 10. So you're starting to see some space being stretched out as we move into the second quarter, so to speak, of the season. And the Lakers, we have the best record for clutch games at this point in time. It's not something you really want to do, but it says that trap games for us may not necessarily be trap games. We've lost a couple of them like that. We lost the Philadelphia game by 1 point, and we blew some games that we should have won. But 20-5, you win a few more games. I mean, we were 24-3 at one point, I think, last year. 25-3 actually for the first 28 games. So if we could end up being, maybe not 25-3, maybe we're 22-6 or something like that. That's a pretty good record, especially considering the short off season, the condensed schedule, and all of those other things going to it. So it's, the other thing that sort of jumps out at me too is that, man, we really need Anthony Davis. Even though AD is not playing like the AD that finished the year last year and, could have easily been MVP of the playoffs if it wasn't for LeBron. But boy, he makes the game so much easier having that second superstar. The load that LeBron is playing with 46, 43, and 41 minutes the last 3 games, maybe 42 minutes by the time he finished this game, puts a lot of weight on his shoulders.
Give that man a day off.
Really, he deserves it. I'm hoping that this whole thing with AD and the Achilles, I'm always having torn my left and right Achilles once at 30 years old and once at 40 years old. I'm very sensitive about guys with Achilles injuries. So I don't mind AD taking off because, man, that is a tough injury to come back from. And even with modern medicine and all of the advances that we've made, and you see guys like, coming back from it without have any effect at this point in time. But it's an injury that's difficult, and you don't want to mess around with that. But hey, we won the game. What more can you ask?
I can ask to not give me a heart attack every single time, especially when you're playing teams that are well under 500.
Well, one of 72 games, Gerald. You can't let that get you out of sorts.
But you've told me this the last game, and then you told me this the last game, and then you've told me this at least a half a dozen times.
We won the last 3 games, so.
But I only have many.
I might feel a little differently if we lost the last 3 games.
Well, I only have so many heart attacks I can take. I'm sorry, but
when you get to be as old as I am, Gerald, you'll understand that those things you have to take them in, and you have to take them in stride. You have to sit out and have some perspective.
Want to give Adam a big shout out. Thank you for giving us a heart on Facebook. We truly appreciate it. Once again, it's the Lakers Fast Break. And the Lakers escape once again. Oh, my goodness. In overtime, 114-113. LeBron didn't have great shooting numbers again, second game in a row. I think we're really starting to see the fatigue with him. Got to give him some rest.
He needs a day off here.
Yeah, 25, 7 assists, 6 rebounds, 25 points, like I said. 3 for 9 from the three-point area, so that's not great for him, who was coming in with a 41% average. Yeah, I mean, Kuzma.
He hit both games. He hit clutch threes, man.
Yes, that's true. Kyle Kuzma did pretty good. 15 points, 9 rebounds. Not too bad there from Kuzma. Good output. That's what you want to see. Caldwell Pope, not there again. Gasol, not there again. Actually, this was a high-scoring game for Gasol. I shouldn't say that because he got 8 points. That's like a 20-point game for a lot of players on the team. Schroeder, 19 points, 5 assists, 7 rebounds. Comes in big once again. Didn't have the greatest shooting numbers in the world, but obviously he did come and made a major contribution. Montrezl Harrell, 20 points, 8 of 10 shooting. I mean, 2 block shots. He gives you what you need coming off the bench, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's really impressed me. The other thing that's really impressed me has been how much he's improved his free throw shooting. Because while there were calls for him not to close out games when he was with the Clippers because of defense, it was also because of free throw shooting. But he has really improved his free throw shooting dramatically. He was 4 of 5 tonight, and he's hit a couple of clutch free throws right down the stretch there. It's interesting. I proposed earlier in the year when we had this 11-man rotation that what the Lakers ought to do in order to keep all 11 guys fresh and healthy was to just pick 2 guys every night to take the night off, and go with a 9-man rotation so that everybody gets into rhythm and you get an opportunity to get into the flow of the game and also to get used to who you're playing with that night. And then everybody's fresh and nobody has to sit 3 or 4 games like West did before he got a chance to start. I really would like to see Matthews start because we desperately need 3-point shooting. We're not getting it from KCP at this point in time. And it might take some pressure off of Kenny to go to the bench. And I think also too, sticking with the same lineup, the same 9-man rotation means you got to leave 2 guys out who could be very valuable guys when it comes to the playoffs. I know Jamie was proposing that we waive Markieff Morris, and I was just uproared about that. He's the guy who saved us in the playoffs last year, and I still believe in Keefe. But it is tough.
Let me ask this. Why would he want to waive Markieff Morris when you still have players like Alfonso McKinney on the team, Quinn Cook on the team, who's on, I don't think I think
it was just dissatisfaction with his play. Because Keith hasn't been hitting his threes. He's shooting 31%. And so that's the big factor. But the problem is that it's hard to shoot your normal, and even same thing with Wes. He was down around 35%. Now the last couple of games he's up over 40%. But it's really hard to get a rhythm as a 3-point shooter when you don't play regularly.
But that's not the deal with Mark, not just the fact that he can hit 3-pointers. I mean, yes, last year in Detroit, he hit close to 40%. I think a little bit above that. But I wanted to go with him. The reason why he was such a major part of the playoffs for the Lakers was the fact that in a small ball, 5-man, 5-out rotation, he provided that center powered forward position and gave some pressure off. He took some pressure off,
and big enough to guard some of the fives to take some of the weight off of. Well, here's the difference this year, though, Gerald. Last year, AD played center 40% of the time, and only 60% of the minutes were used up by McGee and Howard. This year, Trez and Gasol use up 43 minutes of the 48. So you're only playing AD 7% of the time at center. And then he's also missed 5 games. So it is a problem because that Morris really doesn't play well. You were too small when you play Morris and Trez together.
Yeah.
And Trez really is a center. He's not a power forward. He's a center. He happens to have a small body, but so you don't have the minutes for Morris unless you play him with AD because you can't play him with Trez.
Well, you do if you bench or if you follow the same format you did in the last year's playoffs and you sit down your starting center, because they sat down McGee for the playoffs and brought in Morris to pick up the slack for those minutes. Right. If they do the same thing again, because Gasol is not going to be
that's why Morris is really valuable, and you don't want to, and you want to keep him engaged all year long, which is why I'm in favor of Frank using a rotating 9-man rotation. Everybody could just take a game off every 3 or 4 games, and frankly, it'd be great to have LeBron take a game off every 3 or 4 games. I know he wants to play every night, but the truth is, I'd like to keep him fresh for the playoffs. We talk about all of this effort we make to keep AD fresh for the playoffs. Well, who was MVP last year in the playoffs? Who is MVP of this regular season? You got to force LeBron to take some time off. You got to do some things to keep him healthy in the season, because this is a compressed season without fans. It's one of those, it's as odd and as unprecedented as last year was in the bubble. And we don't know how that's going to affect people once you get going along late in the season. I'd frankly, at this point in time, I would, if I was going to reduce the rotation, the player I'd take out of the rotation, frankly, is Marc Gasol, because he's shooting the worst of anybody on the team. He still is playing good defense, considering he can't jump and he's not very fast. He still's got good hands, and he still blocks some shots. And he's got a big body that people got to get around. But the truth of the matter is that we haven't gotten off to good starts. No, we're losing first quarters left and right. And the very high offensive rating that team had originally in the first quarter of the season, as we've gone into the second quarter of the season, we've seen that drop down dramatically. Yeah, we haven't been as effective, and we've been losing. We've been putting ourselves in a hole and having to dig it out of that hole every game. So if you start Trez, you get it to play him with AD, and that makes sense. And Trez is a minutes eater. He's the guy who's eating the minutes at center to keep AD healthy. And then I also think same thing with KCP. If KCP was shooting as well and better than Wes was at this point in time, I'd say no problem, start KCP. But we need 3-point shooting. We need it from our guards to open up AD and LeBron. We need it more than we need it from LeBron, frankly. LeBron's threes are a lot of LeBron's threes, I think, are settle shots.
Yep.
Thank God they're going in, but they're settle shots.
Yeah.
They're settle shots because he's pacing himself and he knows that. And also, too, they open up things a little, because after a while, if he keeps hitting them at 40% like he's doing, you can't just ignore him, especially when he gets hot.
Yeah.
You know, and he's going to do a heat check out there and then knock 2 or 3 or 4 of them in a row, and the game's out of reach for somebody. So it's time, I think, for Frank to just look at shaking up the starting lineup, thinking again about the rotation. 9 men is right. I don't think you want to play 10 or 11. You play 10 or 11, there's 3 or 4 guys on the team who don't have enough minutes to get into a rhythm, and you've got too many combinations with 10 or 11 players, that you're seeing too many 5-man combinations out there, that it's hard for guys to get comfortable with whom they're playing with, to get a feel for that. And I think those are the things that we ought to look at. And then the other thing that it still bothers me is, if your team is coming out flat and you're getting beat on defense, and we're getting beat on defense because guys are just not engaged, then switch to a more aggressive, turn the defense into offense, get aggressive and start trapping and doubling and forcing rotations and getting guys flying around. You don't have to do it the whole game so you wear everybody out. You can do it every 3rd possession or every 2nd possession or every 4th possession or in 1 quarter or in the 4th quarter. Yeah. But do some things to shift it up, to generate energy, get some fast break points, because defense basically is really what fuels our best offense. We really play our best offense when we're playing great defense. And that starts with aggression, then that carries over onto the whole court. It carries over to the offense. It carries over to confidence. And then also, late in the game, if you're open, you've got to shoot the ball. And we're coming down on threes, and I saw Kuzma do this 3 or 4 times tonight, where he had an open 3. He just has to take that shot in rhythm. And Matthews right now is the only guy on the team that I see taking that shot. Morris hesitated several times. Dennis always is basically taking threes off of the threat of his driving, because he gets the guy to take a step back and he's got an open 3. But you get guys like Matthews, he's going to come down and he's going to fire away. I think he deserves to start at this point in time. He's been critical. He's at a critical 3 to help win the last 2 games. And we'll see what happens. We got AD coming back, hopefully, for the next game. I guess we play Friday.
Yes, against Memphis at home
on Friday, and then Friday is that. Then Monday is what is the 14th?
14th is going to be Sunday. That's at Denver.
Sunday?
That's at Denver.
So Denver on Sunday. Then that'll be a good game. That'll be a good test for us. Hopefully we'll get our game together and we'll come out and play well. And I'm sure Ackbar is going to announce to us tomorrow in his 5 great things that this is a trap game coming up Friday.
Well, you know what? We'll see about letting him back onto the show. It's on the fence right now. We'll see.
We got to just keep running on him so that he finally gets tired of it, because he's not here to defend himself. So he's going to have to show up. That's how you get it.
All right. Well, we'll let him back on. Let him back on. But this Admiral Ackbar, it's a trap deal. That's got to go. I tell you, because it's giving you know what? It's a good thing my hair is gray already. That's all I'll say. But I want to go ahead and give a big shout out to Kilpatrick, who also gave us a thumbs up on the Lake Show group. Want to go ahead and thank him so much for that. Again, appreciate everyone who took the time to watch and listen to us today. But before we head on out, my friend, please give everyone an update on what you're doing, not only on your medium.com site, but also Lakerholics.com.
There was an interesting article that Eric Pincus put out. Most of us all know that Eric is a former Lakers blogger and basically a salary cap expert. And he basically had a great article talking about how the salary cap and the luxury tax is going to affect the Lakers. The possibility that the Lakers could end up with a salary cap hit of $95 to $100 million. So I have an article coming out that basically is looking at the changes that the league has put in for the salary cap. Because basically the way the salary cap works is for the first $5 million that you're over the cap, which is $132.6 million for the team. So the first $5 million you're over the cap, you pay $1.50 for each dollar you're over. The second $5 million you pay $1.75, and the third $5 million $2.50. The fourth $5 million $3.25. Then it goes to $3.75, then $4.25, and up 50 cents every time. So what happens is that it's not a bad deal if you're $5 or $10 million over. Most teams can handle that. It's going to cost you maybe $10 million. But when you get to that 15 to 20 million over, you could run into a situation like the Warriors did when they made that deal to bring on Oubre onto the team for $14 million. That $14 million that Oubre put in there cost them almost over 50 million in tax.
It was going to be around 80 to 85 million, I think was one time I heard. And the total cost
right now, they're slated right now to have a tax of 149 million.
Oh.
Next to them is at 49 million or 59 million are the Brooklyn Nets. The Lakers are looking like 4 million. But what the league did is that they came out in December and they tied, because of the COVID situation and the uncertain financial landscape facing the teams. They expected that the BRI, the basketball related income amount, which is shared with the owners and players, pretty close to 50-50. They expect that to be down 30% of the year. And so they basically tied the luxury tax decrease, or a tax cut, if you will, a tax cut for the millionaire teams. It's really going to be only for the luxury tax teams, which are the big market teams. And it was pushed obviously by the Players Association and the big market clubs. So there's a 30% discount on that. So when Pincus is talking about $95 million tax for the Lakers, it's really only like a $65 million tax for the Lakers.
Only 60.
Well, with $65 million, I mean, there's no way Jeannie Buss can say that we're not going to pay $65 million if the Brooklyn Nets are paying $60 million, and the Golden State Warriors, who are the only team, I think if I'm not mistaken, I think that they passed the Lakers and the Nets, or Lakers and the Knicks in net value at $5.4 million. We're the most valuable team in the
billion.
NBA.
You said million. It's billion.
Billion, yes, billion. And obviously, there's where you make the comparison. What is 65 million when your club is worth 5 billion? Now the difference is, of course, that the Lakers ownership doesn't have outside interests, like the owners of the Clippers do, or some of the other teams. They don't have an outside revenue source that gives the owner money to spend. But the Lakers are probably going to do whatever they have to do to keep this club together. And even if, most likely they're not going to be able to keep Trez next year because he's a free agent. We don't have any free agent money. We're not going to be able to pay $15 million, which is probably what he's going to get offers for. A lot of people saved up a lot of money thinking that Giannis was going to be available, Kawhi was going to be available, LeBron and AD might be available. They all signed extensions. And so now you got 20 teams out there with lots of all this cap space they've saved up.
I want to just make a correction for you because I actually reading at this point in time the Forbes article, the actual Forbes article. The New York Knicks are still the most valuable. Yes, they're at $5 billion. They have a change of 9% over last year. Golden State Warriors have moved up to number 2 because of a 9% change year over year. And then they're at 4.7, and the Lakers are at 4.6. So that just gives you the idea. The operating income that they have is about 155. The Golden State Warriors, to give you an idea, is their operating income is around 200, and for the Knicks is around 178. So these are not cheap operations. To give everybody an idea, let's go down to the last team on the list, and that is the Memphis Grizzlies. To give you an idea of their value and their operating income, real quick before we head on out, their value is considerably less. Their value is only $1.3 billion. That's actually almost $4 billion. That's $4 billion less. You and I maybe can get that money together. That's $4 billion less than the New York Knicks virtually. and their operating income is only $22 million. So you see the differences there as far as the values in these teams.
Yep.
But it is right now the Knicks, the Warriors, and the Lakers 1, 2, and 3. But it tells you the kind of money that the teams at the very hierarchy, the top
Big
of
markets.
the chain. Yeah, I mean, that's how much money we're talking about, how much money we're dealing with on a daily basis there.
Just see, last year there were only 4 teams that paid taxes. This year, including the 2 teams we talked about, the Warriors and Warriors and the Nets, who are paying monster tax monies.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at the salaries, for example, they're projecting the Warriors to pay $149 million in tax. The salary cap is only $132 million.
Yeah.
So I mean, and their salary is $160 million. So they're talking about them paying almost $300 million in payroll and tax. Well, this year, because of that 30% discount that was negotiated because of COVID, you would think that people would not want to get into the luxury tax. But instead, there are 10 teams, 1/3 of the league, that is going to be paying luxury taxes.
Well, something to think about right there. But a lot of teams think right now that they have a chance to go far in the playoffs. That's what I'm seeing right now from a lot of the actions.
And play-in tournament.
Yeah, and a play-in tournament, but also as well.
It has a shot now.
But also as well, the James Harden trade, the continued talk about Bradley Beal and so forth. A lot of teams now think they have a chance to go ahead and beat the Lakers, or at least compete with the Lakers on a even level. So we'll see how that plays out. And if the Lakers keep playing down to their competition like we've seen in the past 3 games, who knows what will happen?
That's
but
the regular season, Gerald.
All right. Again, I don't have gray hair without a reason here, and this gray hair is turning grayer all the time. But Admiral Ackbar, Jamie Sweet, we'll go ahead for now, my friend, and let you back on the air. You watch yourself, young man. You watch yourself indeed. Get that trap stuff. Watch it, man. But we got nothing but love for you. I'm just kidding, my friend, as always. But 5 great things. You just got to go ahead and check that out, Lakerholics.com. Also, as well, the Magic Man, L. Rob, so many other great people there at Lakerholics.com. Be part of the conversation today at Lakerholics.com. LakerTom's articles are all over the place. And, of course, you'll find the latest episodes of the Lakers Fast Break, including later tomorrow, that's going to be on Thursday. I'm going to drop a new episode with Stone Hansen from Lines.com. He and I are going to talk about, well, actually, he and I did talk about already some of the G League invites, the G League, the specialists that come out, the ones that are going to be eligible for this year's draft, the G League Ignite team. You got to go ahead and check out our thoughts on some of the top players that performed yesterday against the Santa Cruz Warriors. That was a very interesting conversation, plus also some draft sleepers. We also get into some prize teams in the NBA, and of course we talk about the Lakers as well. But Laker Tom, we escaped once again. LeBron hit a clutch 3 at the end of the game in the 4th quarter to send it into overtime.
Clutch steal at the end there.
Yeah, clutch steal as well.
4 seconds.
Yes, I'm sure darn glad we have him on the team. I'll tell you what. Again, a good performance by LeBron. Still kind of tired. I think this man needs a day off. If he's not going to get it during a game, please just at least give him a day off, because he certainly earned it with 25 points. Once again, he had 7 assists, 6 rebounds, just an overall very solid game. Helped to get us through this, along with clutch performances from Wes Matthews, Dennis Schroeder, and Montrezl Harrell. The Lakers do once again prevail in overtime, 114 to 113. They almost fell into the trap 3 straight times, but they foiled Admiral Ackbar.
We go for 4 with Memphis on Friday.
You stop that. You stop that. You stop that, or I'll ban you from this show, my friend. You'll be next.
If we do, we'll win it, so don't worry about it.
All right. Okay. Because, I don't want to put you and Jamie Sweet in the corner. I'm just going to have to tell you that right now. But I'll tell you what, it was great talking to you once again, my friend. It was the Lakers winning in overtime, 114 to 113. And we will be back, like I said, tomorrow with another great episode with Stone Hansen. And also Friday, Laker Tom and I, hopefully Jamie Sweet, Admiral Ackbar will finally be coming back on the show because, boy, we have much to discuss. Well, you can also hear us as well on Lakerholics on Facebook group. We have a back and forth as well, and Lakerholics.com. He goes at it with Laker Tom on Lakerholics.com, and he goes at it with me on Facebook on Lakerholics on the group there. So be part of the conversation wherever you can on Lakerholics. But again, it is 114-113 in overtime for the Los Angeles Lakers over the Oklahoma City Thunder. And we'll be back Thursday with a special episode, and Friday after the game against Memphis, right here at the Lakers Fast Break Podcast.